evening, and welcome to another edition of Life is People. Well, it's the return of an old friend of mine. So, without any further ado, how you doing tonight, Ben?
I'm good, man. I'm good. How are you doing? You okay?
Yeah. Well, so give us a sort of brief synopsis of what's been going on since we last spoke. Then.
Oh, mate. Just been keeping busy, making a lot of music, just working on uni. Yeah, still settling into London. Don't know. It's got its ups and downs. I've realised the more I delve into this city. But I'm enjoying it still. Yeah, and just working, trying to make some money. But yeah, man. Yeah, a lot of music though. Making a lot of music.
That's what I'm saying. Because the last time we left it, you were just on the finish. Just on the cusp of. Well, you just announced really you got a new project with Ben. I mean, how much have you sort of produced from that conversation?
To be honest, like I haven't released anything yet, but so my main, I don't know, I kind of switched up my main aim a little bit. Um, yeah, as like I'm making music, sometimes I still want to delve into the world that I created with HNOODLE, I think,
Right.
and I could feel that like still like pulling me back. Do you know what I mean? It still had a part of me. Um, so yeah, so I decided to try and like I don't know quench that thirst a little bit. I'd make a sort of piece that would be like a transition for me, really, as well as like people who enjoyed Noodle music as well, but mainly for me. So that's where I'm at the minute. I'm just putting the finishing touches on that, but hoping to release. I mean, hoping to release that very soon and announce it.
So where in that process of what you just spoke about from our last conversation to what you just spoken upon, did the sort of formation of Afterlife come into being?
Um, like just literally as I made more music, I guess like I think we spoke about it before, but my music comes a lot from like the mood that I'm feeling in the moment. It's very like momentary, and but I think I've been doing a lot more like self-reflection as a human being, not just an artist, but just like as a human being. And I've noticed that when I'm feeling a certain way, I still want to, like I said, like quench the thirst that Kush Noodle gave me. So yeah, the Afterlife project is that really. It's me kind of doing or attempting to do that transition from who I used to want to be to who I actually am. Because I guess like as humans, we go through life and we're always finding out who we are. We never always have it figured out. Um, Maybe for me, I guess like a big part of that is like starting therapy. I think that was like a big part of like just understanding who I am a lot more. Um, I've been like quite vocal, I guess, about like my mental health struggles. And yeah, I decided that therapy was a good option to start. And yeah, it just made me realize a lot of things about myself and made me a lot more reflective on my like behavioral patterns in creation and outside of it, of course. But yeah, so that's kind of where Afterlife comes from. It's the transition because I felt like I needed to give myself that transition rather than just cut it off and start being me. Is what the idea behind Ben is. Kushnul was the character, Ben is me. Yeah.
So
So yeah.
on that sort of journey of self expert, going into yourself through therapy and stuff. Has it opened any um, facets of your creativity at all that you didn't expect before going into that?
Yeah, I think so. I think mainly just by like looking at what I think honesty is like the biggest thing. I think like beforehand, me looking at how I thought I was being honest, and now after like however like 4 months of therapy, looking back on that to now, I feel like I wasn't really being honest with myself, and now I'm getting more honest with myself about like how I feel, and that just like that opens doors in creativity like in abundance. I think just because I can touch that honesty without a mask at all, and that's what I've been wanting to do with Ben. That was the whole idea of it. And so yeah, I think yeah, just honesty is like being a big part of it. Being honest with myself, being honest with the people around me, and being honest in my music, not this like idea of honesty that I built up. I think that it was almost like this fake honesty, this like, am I being honest? Yeah, I'm being honest. Okay, that's good. Rather than like, sometimes being honest is not good, you know? Like, but that's okay. And I think that's good in art to be honest, even if there's no good or bad in honesty. I don't know. Yeah, it is just is what it is. I think.
No, but I've always thought personally, I've always kind of lived by this sort of, for want of a better word, mantra that at the heart of art itself or creativity itself, whether it's music or you're writing, writing lyrics down or whatever it may be in a creative sphere, the heart of it, the drive of it, the deep, if you want to say, for want of a better word, the soul of it has got to be the search for truth, because
Yeah,
that's I mean, whatever it is, and that's, I think at times it's hard. That's why it's alluding to what you said at the beginning of this conversation. That's why it's a never-ending journey of you never find the answers, because at times you'll find things in your creative, especially if you've probably been there when you feel like the flow comes upon you and you're hit by things and you're like, wow, is that just me making an illusion in my head? Is that me going through that in my head? Or is that some sort of truth from something that we've got the ability as humans to experience in some sort of way, but we don't understand what it is? And that's part, like you said, it's part of the journey. And that's why I say that the search for truth is, to me, the core of anyone who's, it's always been my way with music. I'm quite, a lot of my friends sound quite snobby, but I a minute a band in my eyes, they sell out and they just do the, we're going to do that. I'm like, you've lost your search for truth. And once they lose it, I finally never come back. We could talk about that for hours. I could name plenty of bands who first 3 albums are great. The rest is just a pile of drivel.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that 100%. Yeah, and I think you you just touched on exactly what I meant, really. Like, but I feel like you can only reach, well, you're never going to reach truth because there is no final answer, like you said, but you can only really search for it if you're being honest. And it's not, it can't be behind a wall of I don't know, maybe it's a wall of other people's opinions of what you want to let out as honest, or I don't know. Yeah, it just can't, there can't be a wall there. There can't be a mask there. I don't think, for me anyway. I need to be honest with myself, honest with people around me, and just honest in my music, because that makes me feel good. And that's my aim is to search for the truth.
I think it's the other way around, but I think it's liberating. I think once you sort of don't, I mean, a lot of people could say easy. It's quite a cliche. Say, "Oh, I don't give, I don't really care what people around me think of me." But if you can really actually live that your life, it's very liberating, because then you think, like you said, you can literally tune yourself with that, whatever you feel like in that moment, and go with it, knowing you don't want to harm other human beings, and you're trying to do the, whatever your own code of life may be. But it's such a liberating thing to sort of not concern about what other people. And I think it's liberating for the person that does it. Can walk out there and have the confidence to say, hey, I'm just me and whatever enough. But it's also liberating for people, because I don't know how you feel this, Ben, but particularly as you say, you're right there in the heart of London, you're at university. I've found, even some amount of years I've walked this planet, the amount of people just they kind of, what they think and what they say are completely different. And it's not until you get them in a room by one, they go, oh, actually, I've been thinking that for ages and ages, but I've had the fear. And that's what the liberating is. It's you shine out to the people, and they're like, actually, yeah, I can be myself. I can express these thoughts. I can be, and that's very liberating all around. If only more human, we all did it as humans. It's amazing how much that could change just the actual reality we live in. I'm sorry, I'm getting quite deep here, but
oh, that's good, man. Yeah. No, I agree with that. I think to an extent, I kind of like to. I'm going to mention therapy a few times, probably, just because it's like something that I've been doing. But like, I touched on that in therapy, like myself, and I think for me, I have been that like person to bring that out of people in certain situations. But in some ways, it wasn't me being fully honest. I was just trying to help them be honest with themselves. Do you know what I mean? So that doesn't. That which makes them feel good, and that makes me feel good, but also I've got to feel good about me. And so this is where I'm at. This is where I'm at. Like that honesty. I need to be that person rather than just bring it out of the other people all the time. Do you know what I mean? Because that's again, I'm feeling good relying on the opinion of somebody else again. That's kind of like been a big, like, I don't really want to call it issue, but I can't think of another word. But yeah, so yeah, honesty and truth, like key themes in my life right now, and that's what I want. That's kind of like where Afterlife came from, I guess, to full circle this moment, is that is that it's my like first delve into that properly, I think, where I feel like I'm being honest about the things I feel in the lyrics, and also just like musically. Yeah, I want to make like pieces of. I want to make pieces like an artist makes a piece, like an author writes a book. Do you know what I mean? I'm not here to just put out singles and hit songs. Like that's not my. I never wanted to do that really, but yeah, and so yeah, the production and everything, the idea behind the production, yeah, I just want it to be like a musical journey, the same way any other art form should be, like a film, like a book, like a piece of art. You can get lost in it for hours. You know what I mean? The right piece of art is a journey through your head. So yeah.
Well, as you know, and I love the fact that I mean, I don't know how much you're going to edit it either way, or how it grows, or it's shrunk in some way. But the current version I've heard of Afterlife of like 13 minutes, I'm like, man, that's exactly what I search for more of. I've always thought all my life that we've almost been, and again, for want of a better word, sort of like conditioned into like in 4-minute hit songs, and that's it. We've almost got it's like we get the rush when we have likes on Facebook or social
Yeah.
media or wherever it may be. It's that same sort of hit. We're so used to it since we were tiny little toddlers, and there's 4-minute wonders. And actually, when you come it from a creative point of view, and I mean it's fascinating now. I'd love to hear your insights as a songwriter, but you kind of feel like, oh wow, that's not a box I want to step out of that sandbox, and actually there's a wider just time constraints that you can go out into, and I think so much more flows from that. So in a kind of tangential way of my rationale, back to you, what was the very inception of Afterlife? Did you have some lyrics in mind and then it kind of built from that, or did you have a piece of music in mind? And I mean, what came first?
I mean, the way I've been making music now is like it's always the music first, and I think that's changed since we last spoke. But yeah, I think I've really been like doubling down on like production, like, and like sound, and how that can tell the story. I want the sound, when I'm making the sound, I want the sound to tell me the story. Then the lyrics are easy because I know what the story is. You know what I mean? If that sound doesn't tell me that story, then maybe we start something else. Like that's how I'm feeling right now about it. But yeah, music is where it came from. Afterlife. I had a couple of songs, just songs that I'd made, like that I thought were like very honest and also like fit this idea. But it kind of came from like the concept came before any music. I don't know. It was this idea of transition. It came from life, like this idea of transition. No, I guess not only from HNOODLE to Ben, but from like this Ben to the next Ben and the one after that. Like, and so I call like it's called Afterlife, but I don't. It's not a death of anything really. It's like it's almost like a rebirth, I guess. I don't know. Like I believe that as we go through life, parts of us we leave behind and parts of us we take with us, and we're always going through this like death and rebirth. And so that's like that's the concept, and I felt like I was going through that heavily through like starting therapy, through changing my artist name, like moving to London. I don't know, just feeling more like an actual adult. even though I'm 28. Took a while, but like just like transitioning through just life as a human, and I've just recognized that that's what we do as human beings, and that's a natural process. And you should never try and hold on to the parts of you that want to die or need to die. Well, not necessarily die, but need to be left behind or want to be left behind. There's no point in holding on to them because they don't serve you anymore. That's why they don't want to be with you anymore. And so, yeah, Afterlife is a bit of an ambiguous title, I guess, because it kind of assumes death, but it's not. It's a rebirth.
Well, yeah, I mean, just sort of like just to hold sort of like a pause at the moment on that. I mean, I was contemplating this the other day, like, you know, you just mentioned then, you know, going to, you know, move to London, going to uni, kind of like, you know, this sort of transition sort of. I don't know if you take the time to think about it, and you maybe take it a step back and think, you're doing this in the most exceptional circumstances. You've done this through lockdown. I mean, that alone, when the whole, okay, as a country, we all wait for it to lesser certain degrees where you were living. But on top of that, you've got university now. Again, I've always sort of thought about at least half of the percentage of going to university is the social interaction. You're meeting people of different where they're coming from, different angles, and that's half that. When you step away after you've done the university bit, you look back and go, oh yeah, that was half of what I learned there, was just integrating with other ideas that, you know, how they brought up, how they've been seeing things, and you had all that taken away. So then you had your lectures taken away, and so you've had quite a massive compound of things that maybe, you know, at times you don't sort of until you sort of step back and think, wow, actually I've conquered all those, and here I am at this point.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, definitely. And I didn't. And I think in our last conversation, I hadn't at all. I think, it kind of is exceptional circumstances. There hasn't been that like social element of it. But then also, I think I'm at a benefit in a way because I'm not like, I guess you never end your social status as a human, but like I remember back to like when I was like 18, 19, like being a social creature was like what I thrived off and what I needed. Whereas like the older you get, the more comfortable with yourself you get, and so that social like dynamic isn't so important anymore. Do you understand? So yeah, so although that was taken away, I think it didn't faze me as much as it would have if I was 18 or 19 because of that. And so I'm like grateful for that. But yeah, I think, yeah, it's been like an inspiring, probably the most like inspiring like little piece of life that I've gone through ever. Just like this, like it's like quite a big move, choosing to make music my whole entire life. And not having a plan B, like even that's like quite scary in itself. Especially like coming from where I come from and stuff. So, but yeah, it's been good, man. I'm happy. At this moment in time, I'm happy, and I'm happy to say that because I don't think I could have said that. I don't think I've ever said that in my life, to be honest with you. So like, I'm good.
That's really inspiring, Ben. Yeah, just for me to hear, that's inspiring me, because I'm thinking, man, if you can say that, and like we just touched upon, that you will do. I mean, I guarantee you'll look back in 5 years, 10 years, whatever it may be down the line at some point. You're looking back, wow, one of the early 20s is the maddest of all times, and when you actually realise it, and then you're sitting here and I can say this at the other end of this, you know, when. Let's be real. There's a lot of people that are suffering. There's a lot of people that are, you know, literally broken down mentally. They, you know, for you to come out and do that there's an inspiration there. That's very inspiring. Because you think, well, as you know, I'm not, you know, you're just a human being. You're a perfect example of saying that, hey, I haven't been given a silver spoon in my life. I've got to this point. It's so inspiring to hear someone actually say, here I am, and I'm feeling the really best time of my life. That's, dude, maybe you won't realize how kind of inspirational that is until, you know, further down the line. But dude, you hit the nail. That's a very inspiring thing to say.
Thank you, bro. I think like, yeah, just me being honest again. just touching on that, like, yeah. And if I wasn't good, I'd tell you, like, whereas in our last conversation, I wouldn't have told you. Again, yeah, just like, yeah, honesty, man. Like, that's what's liberating for me. You know, we were talking about like the liberation of like being yourself, or like, yeah, not caring about what people think. I just think like honesty for me has been the most liberating like experience, 100%. But I appreciate you saying that. It's inspiring. That's very nice, and that's what I hope to do with my music and everything. That's what I want to do. Like, that's what I want to be as a human being. So I appreciate that a lot. Thank you very
Well,
much.
I think as well, it's a it's a lesson that's what all I always appreciate this myself, just because I've had close friends. We spoke about this before, who literally just suicided themselves. And one of the lessons I always learned from that was like, I know it's a cliche again, but just enjoy this thing we call life. I mean, I know it's such a cliche, and everyone says, "Oh, you'll enjoy life," but it's so extraordinary. I mean, if you had said to us 3 or 4 years ago what the last 3 or 4 years had been, you would have never conceived it. Absolutely, it couldn't have been written. And that's the great thing about life. That's why it's always, even the darkest moments, you can draw something from it, and you can turn that into something actually creative, whatever it may be, a song or a piece of art. But you can turn that dark moments, but even those dark moments, it's still part of the ride. And keeping on that ride, to me, is kind of like, well, that's the best bit of being alive. We're still got, I can wake, the ride is still here. We're still going, we're still plowing on.
Yeah, man. Yeah. You just gotta ride it always. Like, yeah, definitely. Yeah, man. It is a ride. It's a journey. It's an unexplainable thing, and it's beautiful in all aspects of it. And that's like something to remember, or try to. Although I understand how, yeah, that's not me just like pushing off any like mental struggles, because like I've been there and like it's awful and you can't remember it in certain aspects. But like, yeah, it's a beautiful thing, life, and it feels good to actually believe that for once.
Yeah, and you could tell me you're going sort of like really looping back to Afterlife, this sort of common theme, but just listen to the progression, because for someone who's not overly overly affair with all the kind of music that surrounds your kind of genre, this you can see that little bit of growth in Afterlife. And I thought, well, here we go. There's something going on. And what really I found it inspiring again was the fact that you are starting to grow from that. You haven't just walked away, because I've known so many, but it frustrates me when you walk down this life as long as I have, and you see there's so many talented people, and they just don't give it up, and then and then 5 years down the line they're working the bank manager, and you're like, what happened, man? So it's the fact that you actually kept going and kept going, that's, to me, it is very inspiring. But on that one again, I want to sort of link it back to what you were saying earlier on. So you're saying you're working on production. Now, I'd love to hear your thoughts on where do you, and again, none of us can predict, but as someone, in your situation, in the heart of London, all the rest of it, where do you think if I was going to say the next 4 or 5 years, do you think it's going to be more analog, as in people buying LPs, going to see live music, or do you think it's going to be completely digital, as in it's going to be phased more, we're going to get more into the metaverse, and we're all going to be wearing, and that will be where we will consume, for want of a better word, or enjoy the musical experience? Or do you think it's going to be more analog, or do you think it's going to be a split, and maybe we go either way?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I can't, yeah, I my initial reaction to that is like, I think 5-year period, I think we're going to be like in a similar place. There's a lot more going on in terms of like the digital world, of course, and I haven't like super delved into that myself, but yeah, I think in terms of like consumption of music, I think that's like going completely digital, and I don't think we can really like get away from that. I think artists big artists do physical releases just because the label tells them to at the minute, because that's, the label can't survive off Spotify revenue, like they have to sell you something. But I'm just like a big believer that you can't replicate the physical like energy of a live gig experience through a digital platform, and I'll always be a believer of that. And I think to be at the smallest gigs to like the biggest gigs, there's like some real like tangible, energetic connection through everybody in the audience and the artist that you it's a hard job for the developer, the coder, to replicate that. You understand what I mean? Like yeah. And I love that. I love live performing and being in the audience. Like that's why I love music. One of the big reasons why I love music. But yeah, on a day-to-day consumption, I think, yeah, it's as long as there's big people at the top controlling how music goes in the mainstream, then the next money grab is where it goes. There'll always be like what I think is like really cool, like underground artists and people who aren't necessarily even interested in being like mainstream like that, selling physicals and doing that and pushing that cause, and I think that's really sick. And I don't think I hope that they don't feel like pushed away from that. However, yeah, I think the live experience, until we are literally all like bed bound with a headset on and we can't move anymore, and that's where you work, live, eat, sleep, and do all your entertainment. Yeah, you can, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, I can tell you. I tell you what, but Ben, you can not saying you personally, but to anyone listening, you can go live in that world. I ain't living in a world where I'm just going to be that ain't going to happen. So one way or the other, there's still be live music going on, because there's one or two of us still out there like that. This goes back to what you just said. It's kind of like one of them again. It's sort of like the mindsets have all been kind of conditioned into thinking that the future is written. It's automatically going to go down this perfect pathway to this. Like, no, man, there's turns and twists that we don't even know on this ride.
100%. Yeah. I think like, so I have a couple of friends in a band called Squams who did an interesting project with one of their releases where they did like a NFT vinyl. So there was like a physical copy of the vinyl and they sold like an NFT as well. I think that's like quite an interesting way to like push music forward. It's quite a futuristic idea, mindset. I really like that they kept the physical aspect as well.
How did that unfold? Was it success? Did they, do you know?
Yeah, I think it was it was one of their most successful releases. I think they did like a 7 or a 10-inch like just single with a couple of B-sides. So when you bought that, you also got the NFT. You could buy it at their live shows, but then you could also buy it online, obviously, and then they would ship you the. And I think that, yeah, like to me, the idea of NFTs is great up until the point where like the big boys get involved. You know what I mean? Which is like everything. It's everything, isn't it? That's yeah, creativity, art, I don't know, food, culture. Everything's great until somebody buys into it and tries to make loads of money off it. And then,
yeah, but you've got to bear in mind with that, it goes back to what I was trying to say earlier on, Ben. That's the thing. It's kind of like, that is, again, it is just what we call life. I mean, there's some people that are going craving for that. I mean, if you talk to any of these teenage stars, they want their 15 minutes in the fame, let alone to have a stadium tour, let alone to be playing at some halftime show at a football game or something. That's their drive, because they live in that vanity world, which again, it's not being true. If you just live in a vain world, and there's always going to be other people that are on the edge of the herd, and they're the ones that eventually I think are more creative, and to me, but always been far more interesting in whatever it may be, are the people on the edges than the people in the herd searching for that, instant fame. Because like you said, once it gets to that mentality, it's always shit. It's not like it's, this is something that's grown up in the last 20 years. I mean, man, goes back to the 50s, goes back to the 30s. It's always been the same shit, man. It's just, like you said, it's a universal truth.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it is shit, but I also don't see like anything wrong with it. I guess, like, I don't know, it's there. It must be there for a reason, like you said. It goes back to the 30s and 50s. I mean, it's there for money, of course, but it's also there for, I don't know, recognition, vanity. It feels good, to have like millions of people telling you that you're the best thing in the world. Like, of course, it's not true, but It feels good. So yeah, I don't hate it, but I don't know. I don't subscribe to it either.
No, because the one thing I've always thought that Ben, whether it's in anyone who's in politics or famous in acting or music or anything like that, all that famous. So if you go, so you swap your life for Jay-Z, all the things that we're taught to sort of you look up at Jay-Z and go, oh, he's got the millions, he's got the pools, he's got whatever the bling and all the rest of it. His limit of freedom is so small compared to our freedom. He can't just pop down the local Tesco's. He can't just pop, he can't just go, oh, I'm going to go on holiday in Costa Rica and that, or the Costa del Sol, walk around and I'm going to be completely anonymous. He doesn't have that. And I'm telling you, I've seen some insights from my life, experience in this life, when I met people on the other side, and that's all they crave. They're like, oh, I wish I could just go and walk around the city in the world where I'm not going to be, and then. So it's always yin and yang. That's why to me, I want the freedom and just to be able to mingle around in life and just being hounded everywhere I go and just being followed and being people saying how great you are. Because tell you what, man, having a whole raft of people must be the worst thing in the world. Will come up to you, you're the greatest ever. You're like, no, I'm not. If only you knew. I was like,
that's it as well. Yeah, big part of it. I guess another reason for it to be called the 15 minutes of fame as well is because all you get is, if you carry on down that road, all you get is the 15 minutes of freedom, really, because once you hit the tip top, there's no coming back. Like, yeah, you get your 15 minutes of freedom and then it's gone. That's what for your 15 minutes of fame, you trade your freedom. Yeah, that's it.
Mate, as if by kind of like sort of substitution thought process, man. I've just literally got the clock ticking on this. So again, life is judged by this bloody clock, man. It's like all the time is this clock. So man, there's a couple of things sort of before we do go any further. So we've kind of discussed it in a tangential way tonight about your the Afterlife. I mean, have you got any kind of set release dates when you're actually going to put the EP out?
No, I don't. Unfortunately, no. I wish I did have that to tell you, but no. I'm just putting final touches to it. I want it to be an aesthetic journey too, and so I need to organise that too. Yeah, because I don't just want to throw music out there. I think it deserves more than that. So that means like visual art. All the nice creative things that go with it, because I'm into that too. But this year, let's say this year, it's coming out this year, 100%. 2022. It will be available.
Spoken like a true artist, my brother. So perfect, man. So just again, that's good. That's being bookmarked down. Will you? I mean, will you are you thinking of giving any kind of snippets? I mean, will you sort of release, even just a little bit so people can sort of at least get a bit of a kind of idea where you're pushing towards?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. There'll be like snippets, teasers. There'll be some more aesthetic type teasers as well, not just musical ones. There'll be a single, but let's not call it that one. There'll be a visual before the whole thing comes, and I also want to be a big part of this is that I want to be, I don't know, I'll start a community with it too, so I'll be a lot more active all over starting that community. So join in, everybody watching.
Perfect, excellent. Well, it's been absolute insightful conversation as always, my Ben. Before we do round this up, I'm going to do, as you know, I'm going to leave you with the final word. So hit with some enlightenment, brother.
Enlightenment.
not too much pressure then.
I know. I'm all enlightened out after this conversation, bro. Life is a beautiful thing. Try your best to remember that. Don't be too hard on yourself, and don't worry too much about judgment. And what happens today can never ruin tomorrow if you remember that life is a journey.
Beautiful, man. And with that, life is people.
Well, they say that life is people and that people are angels and that angels are devils and the devils are me and you.